Hello and welcome to the overview of the SAT Prezis for Horizon Education. As stated in the previous training video, you may access these Prezi videos by going to our website at horizoneducation.com. Once you reach the home page, you can go to this link right here, log in, and you will be prompted to enter a password. Normally, it will only ask you to enter this password once, right? And the password, which has already been given to you, is just PREP prep, like test prep. Once you enter that password, it'll open up all of the Prezis that are available for our program. And you can see here all the different presentations that are available, and you can refer back to your syllabus to see which ones you will be using for any given class day. Today I'm going to be going over the SAT introduction, and a lot of it is just trying to get the students familiar with what to expect on the SAT and go over some content. Right? You'll see this window load up, and it does take a little time sometimes because Prezi has a lot of animation to help get students more engaged with the material. So don't worry if it takes a little bit of time to load. SAT Preparation Horizon Test Prep. So every Prezi presentation is going to start with a warm-up. And you can see the warm-up here. Warm-ups are given at the start of each class, and they are to be completed in the first 10 to 15 minutes of class, either independently or with a partner. It really depends on your teaching style and what you want to experiment with the class. Warm-ups also often require score reports and always require your book. So we always encourage the students to bring their book to every class. Right? It's very important that they have access to this book because the Prezis refer to page numbers inside the book. So for this warm-up, you can assign the students to independently read pages 3 through 7 in their SAT book and have them be ready to share 3 things that they learn about the SAT with a partner. Now, it first goes into the 3 main sections of the SAT. You have evidence-based reading and writing, math, and the essay portion. Reading and writing takes up half of the exam, or half of the total score, from 200 to 800 points. Math makes up the other half of the total score, which is the other 200 to 800 points. Now, these first 2 sections take up 3 hours of the exam time that's allotted for the SAT. The essay is actually scored separately now, so that does not factor into the total score that is given for the SAT. And just a few facts about the SAT. The score highlights are on a 400 to 1600 point scale. And the scores for the essay section are reported separately. The SAT gives credit for every correct response and will not deduct points for incorrect answers. Rich score reports will provide a more detailed view of student achievement in specific skills. So the good thing about the score reports is that it really goes into detail about the data that is provided for each student. Right? It really goes into the specifics and into each category where students have weaknesses and where students may be performing better. And here are the core elements on the SAT. We have relevant words and context, command of evidence, essay analyzing a source, math focused on 3 key areas, problems grounded in real-world contexts, analysis in science and social studies, founding documents in Great Global Conversation, and finally, there is no penalty for wrong answers. So I like to go into a little bit of detail for each, and if you're not too familiar with the SAT, it's totally fine. You can see that as you go through the Prezi, it automatically goes into detail of each section. Right? It describes everything for you. so you don't have to be an expert. Relevant words and context. Right? Students will need to interpret meaning based on context, master relevant vocabulary, and engage in close reading. So a good example that I like to show the students at this point is just how you can change the meaning of a word depending on how it's placed in a sentence. So you can take a regular everyday word that they are used to using in a certain way and put it in a different context so that they can see that meanings can change based on the context. Command of evidence. Students will be asked to interpret, synthesize, and use evidence found in a wide range of sources, and support the answers they choose, and integrate information conveyed through both reading passages and informational graphics. Right? This is just a way for the SAT to make sure that students are able to pick out relevant evidence in a passage. Essay analyzing a source. The essay will more closely mirror college writing, cultivate close reading, careful analysis, and clear writing, and promote the practice of reading a wide variety of arguments and analyzing an author's work. Again, this is just the exam's way of trying to make sure that students are able to form a coherent analysis based on a passage that is given to them. Math focused on 3 key areas. Current research shows that 3 key areas most contribute to readiness for college, and that is problem solving and data analysis, heart of algebra, and passport to advanced math. Problems grounded in real-world context. Students will engage with questions that directly relate to the work performed in college and career, include charts, graphs, and passages likely to be encountered in science, social science, and other majors and careers, and feature multi-step applications to solve problems in science, social science, career scenarios, and other real-life contexts. So the SAT is trying to make sure that students are prepared to encounter these kinds of problems, and they are trying to see that if students can actually answer questions like these, so that once they get to college, they are adequately prepared. Analysis in science and social studies. Students will apply their reading, writing, language, and math skills to answer questions in science, history, and social studies contexts. So in this section of the SAT, it really goes over different areas in, for instance, if you have a math problem that also has a ton of reading within it, that will be involved in questions such as these in analysis in science and social studies. Right? It will involve more than just math. It will also involve a lot of the English portion as well. So it requires more knowledge. Founding documents and Great Global Conversation. The redesigned SAT will include one of the following: an excerpt from one of the founding documents, or a text from the ongoing Great Global Conversation about freedom, justice, and human dignity. Right? You don't have to have any prior knowledge of the text to answer the questions. And finally, there is no penalty for wrong answers. 1 point for each correct answer is given. 0 points for unanswered items, and 0 points for wrong answers. So what this means is that no question should be left blank. Right? There is no longer a guessing penalty. Before, a quarter of a point would be deducted, which discouraged guessing. But now that this has been removed, the students are encouraged to guess as a last-ditch effort only, of course. I wouldn't encourage students to guess on the entire exam, but if they run out of time and there are empty questions, unanswered questions, then it is advisable to have them fill something in, right? Usually either a B or a C. SAT scores and subscores. Now this is just a very brief breakdown of the SAT scores and the subscores. You can see the total score is at the very top, right? And under that is the evidence-based reading and writing and math scores, which are the 3 main areas that I tell students to pay attention to. Underneath that, though, you can see analysis in science, analysis in history, and reading, writing, and language, and math. Now, under reading and writing and language, you can see words in context, command of evidence, expression of ideas, and standard English conventions. Under math, you will see Heart of Algebra, Passport to Advanced Mathematics, problem solving, and data analysis. Right? And this is just a way to categorize all the different types of questions that are given on the SAT. Cross-test scores. Cross-test scores include analysis in history and social studies and analysis in science. Each of these scores will be reported on a scale from 10 to 40. These scores are based on selected questions in the SAT reading, writing, and language, and math tests. They will reflect the application of reading, writing, language, and math skills in history and social studies and science contexts. Reading and writing subscore. Right? The reading and writing and language tests will each contribute questions to 2 subscores, command of evidence and words in context. The writing and language test will also report 2 additional subscores, expression of ideas and standard English conventions. Now this is just a way for us to explain to the students what each category is talking about, like how to interpret each category on the breakdown of the SAT. Right? The math subscore, the math test will report 3 subscores, right? Heart of Algebra, problem solving, data analysis, and Passport to Advanced Math. Now finally, there's the SAT essay scores, right, which is broken down into reading, analysis, and writing. Right. All right, and this is a brief slide on just how to interpret score reports. You have your total score on the bottom left there in big, bold numbers, which is easy to see. And then to the right of that, you can see the section scores. Right? Evidence-based reading and writing, and math score. And those are the 3 main numbers that students will pay attention to. For the next page of the score report, you can see exactly what questions were answered correctly, what answers were answered incorrectly. If a student answered a question correctly, there will be a check mark next to their response. So at the very top, you'll see the question number, and under STU is the student response, and under COR is the correct response. So if there's a check mark, the student answered correctly. However, if there is a letter under the corrected column, then the student got their got the answer wrong. Right? So the corrected answer is provided there in that column. How to increase your score on the SAT. On every score report, there are top 5 opportunities to increase the total score for each student that is personalized to their score report. Right? And these are some examples that you may find on a score report. Right? Work on information and ideas, work on Heart of Algebra, work on words in context. And the way that this works is that the system that we use, or the algorithm that creates these score reports, punches in the information and tries to see whether students are answering certain questions correctly, and looks for these patterns. And if the students are filling in every question, or if they're skipping a lot, then it might indicate that they're running out of time and that they're not able to answer all the questions. And these suggestions are given based on that information. Where to sign up for the SAT? So one important thing is that the students must all sign up for the official SAT. Right? Being signed up for Horizon Education in their school does not automatically mean that they are signed up for the official SAT, which is why we include this slide in the intro. Right? We want to make sure that students are aware that they need to go to the College Board website to sign up for the official SAT. That way, once they're done with the course, they can take the official SAT right afterward. So the SAT is offered nationwide 7 times throughout the school year. The most popular testing dates are October and March. And like they can sign up at sat.collegeboard.org. It costs $60 with the essay and costs $46 without. Right? Make sure the students are aware of deadlines, because people who procrastinate will end up having to pay more money. There are fee waivers also available for students who cannot afford $60 per exam. And these are slides relating to the fee waiver. Right? how to qualify for the fee waiver, some of the requirements for qualifying, and what students can do to find out if they do qualify. Right? And essentially, it's saying you should visit your college counselor, talk to them about how they can apply for a fee waiver, whether they qualify, and if they do, then they are able to qualify for 2 free SAT exams. Okay, sample questions on the SAT. Test taking basics, right? Knowing the test, managing your time, guessing effectively, and write and bubble clearly. Now it's diving a little bit more into the strategy and trying to get the students familiar with some of that strategy. Right? And this is just a sample essay prompt that you can read with the students just to expose them to the material. Right? And here's a sample item for command of evidence, right? The reading test. It shows exactly what the questions look like. Right? What are they referring to? And you don't have to go into too much detail. You don't have to read every word. The purpose is just to expose the students, to show them what it looks like. Right? And here's a sample item for the reading test. Right? Writing and language test, another sample item. You can see that graphs are being utilized here. So you have to have an awareness of interpretation of these graphs and being able to interpret the information that's being presented in the paragraph as well. Relevant words in context, writing and language tests. Here's an example of how words can be put into different sentences to have different meaning. Relevant words in context, another example of a word being put in a different context and showing that the meaning of a word can change based on the context. Math sample, again, you don't have to be a math expert to solve these problems, and this is just a presentation of these types of problems. You're not necessarily trying to solve them on the spot on the first day of class. Right? Okay. Lessons and classwork. So there is classwork assigned in every Prezi as well, which is why we encourage the students to always have their book. Right? Expectations, you want to go over the expectations with the students at the beginning of the class. One of the most important things is that they show up to class on time. Right? And I really can't emphasize that enough. There are improvements that we see throughout the program are usually correlated with the attendance to the class as well. So students who go to every class and go to every practice test on average will increase. Right? Whenever we see drop-offs in points, it is always correlated to students who end up having drop-offs in attendance as well. So we really try to encourage the students to come to every class and to make sure that they show up on time. Right? Participation. Right? Participation is key for having the students engaged with the material. Right? Completing classwork, attending the 3 practice SAT administrations, right? And of course, having fun and really enjoying the class. Okay, and this is the classwork activity for the first Prezi. It's a jigsaw classwork activity in small groups, and you can see that it can be up to 8 groups reading separate pages in the book, and if you want, you can have them create a poster or just use paper to summarize the main points from the section that they have read, right? And you can have them present that to the rest of the class so that they can learn from each other, right? And of course encourage them to be creative and make it visually appealing. Key strategies for the SAT. Right now, here's digging deep into the strategies. The 4 Ps: plugging in options, pencil on paper, process of elimination, and pick and skip. Plugging in options. Right? For math, working backward or plug in an answer to choice to see what might work. it's best to start with choice B or C, as answer choices are in numerical order. For example, if answer choices increase from A to D, and you plug in C and determine that it is too small, you can eliminate choices A, B, and C. This is a trick that most students aren't really aware of and can really save time if they are able to eliminate those answer choices as soon as possible. For writing in English, substitute the answer choices into the original sentence to see what choice sounds best or works best in context. And here are some examples. We can plug in answer choices and find the answers. Okay. Here's some examples for writing. Again, the same strategy works with writing and reading as well. Pencil on paper. Be an active reader to understand information on the SAT. Interact with text by using your pencil to mark up the passage. Underline important parts of the text. Add your own notes to the margins to emphasize key information. And it gives an explanation of how to utilize pencil on paper for each section. Right? For math, underline question being asked, draw diagrams. For reading, underline 2 to 3 main ideas per paragraph that relate to who, why, what, where, and when. And for writing, circle or underline parts of a sentence that seem related to an error. Right. Here's an example for pencil and paper for writing. And another for math. Process of elimination. Right. This is probably one of the most popular strategies. Look for wrong answers and eliminate them to narrow down answer choices. If you know an option is wrong, mark it with an X in your test booklet. If it's possibly right, leave it open and compare the best choices. It's possible to eliminate 3 answer choices, leaving you with the 1 correct answer. And here's an example of process of elimination for math. Right? Ask the class, why were A and B eliminated? Right? Have them interact. Right? And I try not to focus too much on me presenting to the class. I'll have them give their own responses and have them interact as well. And oftentimes students will be intuitive and reach the correct answer as well using the strategies that you presented to them. And here's an example that you can show for reading as well, process of elimination. Pick and skip. Since every question is worth 1 point, you can skip around in the same section. Work on easier questions first and save the harder questions for later. Always guess if you run out of time. Right? Apply the strategy to improve your speed. So these are just ways to shave down on the time being used per question. Right? And again, it's the same structure. It gives you suggestions for each section: math, reading, and writing. All right. And here's classwork number 1. Right? Read the passage on page 46. Answer questions 1 through 4. Right? And this is just so that students can see where in their book they should be looking. Of course, all the students should have their book so that they don't have to squint at the screen or monitor that you're showing this on. It's really just a reference for them to go back into their book. And finally, homework for the SAT introduction. Create a study schedule for your course. And there is an example on page 25. Right? We're trying to have the students become accountable for their studying, and they are to select 3 subtopics of weakness from their score reports that they should have on their first day of class to see where they need to focus on to improve. Right? If they do not have a score report, select 3 topics from the table of contents that they would like to improve on. Right? And some students may join the class a little late. Some students may have missed the first practice test, so there are a variety of reasons why they may not have that score report. And that is the last slide for the SAT introduction.